Welcome back to the Eight Man Breakdowns podcast. This is where we discuss all phases of the game of football, including philosophy, play concepts, questions, and more. Joining me today is Coach Joel Struckhoff. Coach Struckhoff is the head coach at Thunder Ridge High School in Kensington, Kansas. Coach Struckhoff has 6 years of coaching experience, all in the eight-man game at Thunder Ridge, serving 1 year as an assistant and the rest as a head coach. The program had a 3-22 record in the 3 seasons prior to Coach Struckhoff taking over. He has since led the Longhorns to a 41-13 record, which includes multiple deep playoff runs with 2 semifinal appearances and a state championship appearance last season. Well, Coach, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. This is going to be a lot of fun.
So here, I always start with a little background information. So just start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your high school playing days and how you got into coaching.
Well, the funny thing is, I started out at Thunder Ridge High School. Actually was Kensington is where I started when I was in grade school, and then we combined with Eastern Heights when I got into high school. That would have been my first year of high school. We combined into being Thunder Ridge, and then I got the opportunity to come back and coach at my hometown, and very thankful for that. Went to college at Fort Hays. I've only coached at Thunder Ridge, coached track before I coached football. I was an assistant football coach for a year at Thunder Ridge, and then I was the head coach. And, it's just I was led into coaching by the love for the sport. I think you can say the same thing. A lot of the football coaches are guys that were good players or just really enjoyed the sport. And, I just really enjoyed the sport and was hoping I could make an impact in my hometown. I know we'll probably go into detail, but we didn't have a very good record when I came home. So that was just one of those things that I thought maybe I could help out with.
Yeah, and I would say it's probably rare. That you actually do get to go coach in your, in your hometown, but that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that, those opportunities, especially in your hometown, it's like, I don't think those opportunities, I think it's just hard enough to even be a head coach the way it is. It's hard to get that opportunity at a young age. I know you and I have talked about this a little bit. To be even given an opportunity, you feel like sometimes like, man, I think I could do this, but that's a big step from being an assistant to going to the head coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you were saying there, talking about the consolidation of the schools going into your freshman year. Talk a little bit about that. So what were the 2 towns? I only know Kensington. What's the other town and what was the school again?
So the other town would be Agra and Kerwin, which they combined to be Eastern Heights. They were a school about 5 miles away from Kensington. Kensington was West Smith County is what we were called, and then they were just Eastern Heights, which was they were combined with Kerwin and Agra. Yeah, and really the funny thing about that is, when I was a kid, the 2 schools didn't really like each other. And then, I have a lot of really good friends from Agra. It's crazy that 5 miles apart, that it took a lot of work to get that consolidation to actually happen, because the towns just didn't get along that well at that time. And obviously our time as Thunder Ridge has been great, but to start that off, I know the process wasn't easy for everybody.
Yeah. To be honest, I understand the scenario there where because obviously I went to Baileyville and we were gonna consolidate with Axville. It was really close and then it didn't happen. It's that old school rivalry of
Yeah,
pretty much the
old school
parents at the
stuff.
time, I think it would have been more beneficial for the kids and the kids wouldn't have cared. Like you said, you got friends from Rager, but yeah, talk a little more about that. It's just interesting to me because I don't know much about Thunder Ridge, but I think Thunder Ridge, the name is awesome. Any idea how they came up with that or where they decided to kind of
It's has something to do with the roads. I think there's a Thunder Road and a Ridge Road in between Kensington and Agra. I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on
oh,
this.
that's
And
cool, man.
I think that's where they came up with the name. I wanted to comment on your old rivalry thing. Old blood.
Yeah,
Yeah, the kids, like when we were getting ready to go through that process, we had played junior high sports with them already, so we were super happy about it. And then I think it kind of came down to parents that people older than me maybe didn't have those same feelings about Agra. Like the kids, when we consolidated, it was great. I mean, that was never the issue. I think it was like you said, old bad blood between the 2 towns that caused that to be a conflict. But since we've been Thunder Ridge, it's been a great deal. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know the history of Kensington was pretty strong. I mean, because I still remember my uncles played like Kensington in state football a couple different times, or even state basketball. The Gold Bugs, which is an awesome, another cool, interesting mascot and school name for the
Yeah,
school.
I think well, now I think there's only one gold bug mascot left in Kansas. Fowler, or is
Yeah,
Fowler still? I
yeah, I
think
think
that's the
it's
only
still out.
gold bug now.
Yeah,
It's kind of rare to. We were just, what is a gold bug? You always think that, and it's
yeah,
like not very many people in Kansas or the whole United States have that mascot. Yeah, kind of a crazy mascot.
yeah. Well, I love the Thunder Ridge. I mean, just the school title, and I like the Longhorn too. And the color scheme is awesome. I mean, and you guys use a lot of black too. But
Yeah. So when we consolidated, the students got a vote on the deal, and really, the second vote was the Ducks. And I
really,
can't remember what I can't remember what I don't think it was going to be Thunder Ridge, but the mascot, the second place mascot, that's what it was between the Longhorn or the Ducks at that time. Kind of like the Oregon Ducks were
yeah.
really popular at that time. So that was what got second in the voting. So I thought that would have been pretty cool to be the I don't know how it would have worked out, but being the Ducks would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd have been, extremely rare too, because I don't know any other high schools, at least in Kansas, that are the Ducks.
Yeah, yeah, that I know that would have been rare too, but yep.
So here, let's move on a little bit. So, I mean, as everybody knows, football is a copycat game, not just 8 man, 11 man, everything. We all steal from each other, but what would you say is something that kind of separates your program? Like something you guys do differently, or what's different about your program?
I just feel like we got strong kids, and I think strong slash tough kids. I think the weight room builds that, and I'm not just saying, weights are really simple in my opinion, but it's getting kids to buy into like, hey, this is something we're going to do. We're going to do it very well, and we're all going to do it. And hey, some of us might not be, on your level yet, but we're going to work to get to that level. I work everything off of percentages, and like, it's just crazy to see, what some kids what they do as a freshman, and then how much they progress. And I'm sure everybody's this way, but I just feel like the weight room is one of those that really has set us apart from other places, maybe in 8 man football right now. That I've just been very blessed with good senior leadership in the weight room as well. Um, Creating a positive culture, that goes into the same thing with the weights. Like when I first started off, I had to find my senior dudes right away and make sure, like, hey, this is what I am. This is what I'm going to preach. This is how we're going to do things. I need you guys to buy into it. So everybody around us is going to do the same thing, whether it's a freshman, sophomore, junior high. This is the way we're going to act. This is the way we're going to do things. And this is the way we're going to play football. And I think that just having a good senior leadership has always helped us. And I'm sure everybody in everybody's program can say that. But just developing good kids, so by the time that they are seniors, they can be that role model for the freshmen and sophomores, leading them in the right direction. And I really just think that that's kind of what helps us be successful. Just getting every kid to know that, hey, we're all here for one common purpose. We're here to win football games. We're here to get better as individuals. And it takes time, it takes dedication, and it's just going to be one of those things where you have to grind it out for sure.
I mean, obviously the weight room buying, I 100% agree. And you guys, I would say that I would have to agree. I mean, the weight room for you guys always seem to have some big dudes. You always have a big line. You got, big running backs, that have obviously developed in the weight room and put the time in, which is awesome to see, other than when you're lining up against you guys, but
It's one of those things, that we talk about. I just see it this way. you know, God gives people a lot of speed. God gives some people not very much speed. But one thing you can really control is whether you get stronger or not. I mean, there are certain kids that can get a lot faster, and there are certain kids that aren't going to get a lot faster. But everybody on a general level can get stronger. And I feel like if you can be strong in 8 man football, you've at least got one thing going for you. And typically, if you're stronger than the other team, hopefully you're more physical as well. So that's just one of those things that I'd like to think that when you're lifting weights, you're getting stronger in the weight room, you're at least giving yourself you're handling one of those things you can control. You can't always control your speed and stuff like that.
So talking about your size and that belief in to being physical, just talk a little bit about your offense and how that structure of in the weight room and being physical goes into your offense. So,
Just with my offense, and this comes from, my head coach, obviously there wasn't the offenses were a little bit more simple at that time than what they are now.
mm,
But I run a heavy backfield set. I didn't always run it a ton this year. I actually went away from it a little bit more, but I'm pretty sure that, anybody that's played us knows that we have a heavy set backfield where I've got two up backs in front of my quarterback that are either, I mean, they run the ball too, but we can definitely play the power game where we're just going to lead both of them one way and get right in behind with the quarterback. Just a big power game. And that really goes into the weight room, to be running 30 carries as our quarterback, and basically be used as a plow horse. You got to be strong. I mean, you got to be physical. You got to take that contact. I know my guy this year, he took a beating, but that he wouldn't want to play any other way because that's all he knows. He knows that's what we do, and we got him out of some of those situations this year. But I just feel, if you're going to be in our system, you're going to have to get used to running the football and running it hard because if you look at our first game there against Alma, I think I had two backs with 30 carries. So that's a pounding, and you got to be physical if you're going to take 30 carries. I just feel like there's not a lot of players that can take 30 carries and not be just completely exhausted after the game. So I just really think that the weights plays into that, and I want my kids to play physical, run through the tackles and finish when you're tackling, we're going to finish out our tackles. So just physicality overall.
yeah, definitely. I think that totals your entire program. I mean, you guys are always physical, big, like you said, strong and working, obviously pushing it through the weight room. But here, let me jump back then real quick though. So for those who don't know about your past at Thunder Ridge as a coach so far, just kind of summarize, take us through your time so far at Thunder Ridge.
Okay, so when I started, I don't know how many games they had won prior to me, but my first year as assistant, we only won 2 games. And I think the 3 years prior to that, they may have only won 2 total games in those 3 years. So it was walking into a program that, um, expectations weren't super high. They just wanted something that was a change, something that hopefully was better. So the first year we went 5-4, and I just really preached that. I can always remember this going back to that. Trust the process is what my that was one of my things I always said at that time. I stole it obviously from the Philadelphia 76ers. They were big with that at that time, but I used it to my own deal. Trust the process. We're going to get where we want to go, but we've got to work for it. I think that first summer I had 3 kids show up on the first day of summer weights as it, and then it like turned out to be somewhere around that 25 area towards the end of that first summer. So like I said, that first year we went 5-4. Had a lot of good kids there that, if I would have had them for 4 years, definitely would have been a lot of fun. Myself as a head coach, I was not very good my first year. I think a lot of people know that. I stuck strictly to the I formation, and we had a little pro set. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just kind of copied some of the stuff we did in high school. And I think this is one of the big things for young coaches. Do your own thing, look it over, think about it, and come up with your own stuff. But back to where we were at. Second year, went 10-2 and lost in round 3 to Hutch Christian. Still probably got out coached there. We were down, what was it, right before half? I think we were like 2 points away from getting 45. Then we actually come back in that game, lose by 6 points at the end, like 60-66. Some really high scoring. I can't remember the exact score on that, but just another deal there. Just a young coach, great experience, obviously, but was young there. Third year was this my seniors this year. It would have been their sophomore year, and they kind of ran off a really good senior class that year before, and those guys were kind of the leaders. And then we had a little bit of a down year here, 5-4, and we lost Axtell in the first round of the playoffs. I think you were at Axtell at that time. We were up 20 some points real late in the game.
Mhm.
Probably didn't coach the best football there either. So Fourth year, 11-1 record and an undefeated regular season, and ended up losing again to the state champions Axtell in the sub-state championship game. My last year, my fifth year, we made it to the state championship with an 11-1 record. Losing only to Hill City in the regular season, had best kid get kicked out of that game. Probably would have looked a little bit different. And then obviously losing again to Axtell in the state championship for 11-2 record. So that's what I've got, I guess, as a coaching career.
I really like what you said about like doing your own thing. Don't be afraid to be different and do your own thing. I 100% agree. And then I do want to jump back and ask another question there because you said something about you had 20 some at weights that first summer, but I wanted to ask like how you got that buy-in to the weight room.
Getting kids to buy into the weight room when I first got there was really tough. I think you've got to find a way to relate to your players, and everybody is going to be different. Like we just talked about with the way you do things in your coaching, like with your plays and stuff like that. You got to do the same thing like with just getting kids to buy into your program. Me, like I'm not saying you got to be buddy buddy with them, but I just feel like there's a good you got to find that fine line of being nice to your players, making sure they know that you care about them, and that everything we're doing here is for the betterment of you. Like if you want to be good at football, we've got to lift weights. I care about you, but when it comes down to it, like know that when I'm yelling at you or whatever at practice, like it's because I care. If I'm not yelling at you, if I'm not trying to make you better, then we're not getting anywhere. And I think that's the same thing when we're talking about weights. I just had to let them kids know, like, hey, if you're going to go out for football like this, you've got to do this. This will make you such a better football player. And just getting, okay, we got 2-3 kids this week. Okay, those 2-3 kids, I'm going to tell them, like, hey, man, get your guys up here. Let them know that weights is super important if they want to be good at football. And then it just kept getting better and better each week. Now I don't even have to worry about kids being in the weight room. Like I've got, I have a problem with having to kick kids out of the weight room because we've just always got kids that want to be in there. So it's just so nice going from having to beg kids to be there. Now it's just like that's what Kensington Thunder Ridge does. And the kids, I don't even have to worry about them. I know that they're going to be doing what they're supposed to be doing. And it's just a good process for us.
Yeah, and I agree. Again, finding a way to relate to your players, definitely. I mean, get on their level in some way, and then I like you said there again, telling them that everything that we do is for a reason, for a betterment of you, to try to make you improve. That's awesome. So just talk a little bit more about this past season. Like what'd you learn most about your team? Obviously, you had a lot of success, but just talk about this season.
So probably what I learned most this year coaching football is, in 8-man football, I feel like this is something that everyone can take from this. You're going to have different athletes every single year. You're going to have different kids. You're going to have different personalities. You've got to find that within the first 1, 2, 3 games, what you think is going to work. I mean, you might have 3 offenses at the start of the year or 4, or how many ever everybody's got, but you've got to figure out what's best for you. And I think that's something that this year for me, I really had to look into because the first game, we kind of struggled our first game. We played a team out of state. They were on their third game, and we kind of struggled in it. Defensively, we struggled really bad in it. So we were trying a new defense. We found out that didn't work. Our offense we were putting up points, but different people in different positions this year made it where had to switch things up a little bit. And by this, I think every coach says this, that we're not really worried about what we're doing week 1 and week 2. We want to be efficient when we hit the playoffs. We want to be a well-oiled machine once we hit the playoffs. Everyone's going to have some bumps and bruises to start, the year, which we did. Had probably our second best football player on our team hurt his knee before the season started. We were missing him the first 2 games. We got him back for Hill City, and he wasn't 100%. That was the first game he played. So injuries, that's another huge thing that in 8-man football, man, I know a lot of us are working with just, around 20 kids. You get one kid hurt that's a starter, who knows what you're replacing him with. Had some kids fill in the playoffs that hadn't played a whole lot. Had a sophomore offensive lineman, Braden Burge, had to play in his first varsity game ever. Came in, filled shoes great, did a really good job. So getting kids to buy into, like next in line, because you just never know what's going to happen. Had really good senior leadership this year. I will say that, those guys have been playing with each other. A lot of them have started for me since freshman year. Quarterback led the offense every year but his freshman year. His brother was the running back, 3-year starter. All those guys had been there doing that for a long time, and they just built a really good bond with each other. And us as a coaching staff, we just knew how to use those players in the right way. And like I said, every year you're going to have different players that you're going to have to use differently, because I know next year will be nothing like what we did this year. It's just different talent. So I just think that, for this year, that's what we were. We just had to really mold ourselves throughout the year.
And being adaptable, I like that. Again, you got to find your identity early, but you guys tried some things, and yeah, maybe you found out that maybe that wasn't the way, what you wanted to do. But again,
Well, and against Hill City was a really good football team. And you know what? Found out, hey, what I did last year is not going to work against a good football team. So this is a good time to see that. So when we get further along, like, did the Hill City game matter in the grand scheme of things? No. Did I want to win the football game? Of course, yes. But I know Davian and I have both talked after the game. I told him right away, I said, man, this was really good for us. I said, I knew we were going to have some things we struggled with that I needed, to address, and this definitely exposed it. And I think it was one of those really good learning experiences for us.
I like them bigger games. They're awesome. I mean, if you can play a really talented team, especially a non-district game, that doesn't necessarily matter. But as long as you come out healthy, that's
That's a big one. That is a big one.
But here, so and you're talking your senior leadership, and you had 3 and 4 year starters, and them guys moving on. So building off of this year, in your state championship appearance, what are you looking forward to most going into next year?
What I'm looking forward to most actually is, I'm going to flip the script completely. I want to see what happens next year with new guys. I've got a lot of guys that I really believe in, and I believe that can step up and fill the shoes, and do a great job. But that's a big if. I think anybody will agree with that. When you lose, I lost 10 seniors this year. Not obviously not all of them played, but 6 to 8 of those played a lot. So I've got some guys that were juniors last year that are going to have to step up big time. I got some sophomores, and we're just going to be a completely different football team than what we were from last year. So I think, it's going to be a new opportunity for me to, hopefully it makes me grow as a coach. I've been so blessed the last 4 years to have guys that, could kind of run the same stuff and knew what they were doing. This year, it's going to be a little bit more teaching, I feel like. And we've still got some really good leaders, I think, from last year's team that will fill into that senior leadership role. And I hope that they can get things rolling in the right way. We can just take off where we were last year, but there's going to be a growing pain. So it's going to be interesting.
You did said you have some guys who are, big leaders this year that are coming back, and you're looking forward to them stepping up. Is your quarterback, or I mean, he played some quarterback, played some running back, receiver, that Baker kid, right?
Yes, yes,
He'll be
yes,
back,
yes.
right? Is that right?
Yeah, the Baker kid's going to be one of our better players next year. If you watch the state championship game, Baker actually, put up a lot of yards in our offense, and he's a really good weapon. And I guess that's just one of those things. Like I told you, it's going to be a different year. I don't even know where he's going to play next year yet. Probably going to play in a bunch of different positions next year. It's just I like to do that. I use my quarterback some as a running back this year. I used him as a slot guy this year. I think 8-man football that's one of the great things about it is you can use people in a lot of different positions based on matchups, speed differences. You might have a guy that I've just always, this kid's moved around all over, played slot, played running back, played quarterback. So he's kind of a just do everything type of guy. The other guy that's coming back this next year is Joshua Ferguson, who was our starting middle linebacker last year, led the team in tackles, played guard for us. Just a hard-nosed kid, 6'2", 220, just has a nose for the football too. So, and he's a good kid. Both of these guys are real good kids that I really feel like stepping in as seniors, they'll do a great job of being a positive leader. And some years, you might not get that. Your seniors are good football players, but they're not a good positive role model for your underclassmen. And I feel like these two guys can really do that well for us.
We'll wrap things up here with our last question, Coach. So, what would you say is your biggest piece of advice to other upcoming football coaches?
My biggest piece of advice, like we talked earlier, do your own thing. I mean, yes, we talk about copycatting, and I've copycatted so much, but I've turned it into my own stuff. And I think that's the most important thing. You can look at everybody else, you can take information from everybody else, but be genuine in what you do. Do your own thing and trust that what you're doing is the right thing. Because if you don't trust in yourself, you probably aren't going to get your players to trust in you. So whatever you do, just make it genuine and authentic, being about you, doing what you think's the best. And if you find other people's stuff that you like, mold it to your own. Another thing is, like we talked about, finding a way to relate to your kids so where they buy into what you're preaching. I really feel like today's youth, they have to know that you care. So you got to find a way that you can get to them, that they know you care, but yet you still playing that leadership role for them. Don't be too friendly with them, but yet you still got to let them know that you care about what's going on. And then try to be structured. I know when I first came in, everything was super structured for me, and that helped me out a lot, like planning my practices and stuff like that, and then just getting into a routine, planning out your summers, making sure that you know when you're going to have camp, what's expected of kids. That's a big one too. Setting standards for what you want for your program, and don't bend those standards for certain kids. If you've got a no cussing policy or whatever you've got, like make sure you stick to those rules, because the moment you start breaking some of those rules, then your program can definitely turn in a different direction. So I guess another thing is, as a new coach, make sure what you're doing is for the betterment of the kid. Like it doesn't always have to be about football. If you're making that kid's life better by just being out for football, that's a win there. Not every kid's going to be a great football player, but hopefully you can affect that athlete's life in more than just the football manner. Hopefully they can learn some teamwork from that. So when they're later in life in their job.
Absolutely, you said a lot of great things there. But yeah, I like that. Even that last one there. Just even if a kid that's not an athlete at all, even if he is going to go out for football or whatever, yeah, just make him feel part of the team. Make him feel accepted and all that, and then yeah, it's going to help later on. But I really like what you said though. Do it in your own way. Trust in yourself and make it your own. Because yes, football is definitely a copycat league. Probably 99% of the offensive stuff I do, or even defensive stuff I do, none of it's new. Everybody's done it in some way. We just, yeah, like you said, make it your own. And then the last thing there, relating to your kids. I mean, you have to this day and age. And obviously, your kids have bought into your routine and know all this, and they know you care about them and you relate to them. But yeah, that's great stuff, Coach. Well, Coach, thanks again for taking the time to join me tonight. I love talking ball. Really appreciate you taking the time to do this. So thank you, Coach.
Hey, yeah, I really appreciate it. This has been a great opportunity for me. I really enjoy talking football too, and I know that we're going to have fun this summer.
That'll be a great time. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to learning and seeing some kids compete. Yeah, it'll be fun. And one last thing, you guys, I've recently started a Twitter page to basically just continue the spread of the eight-man game through Twitter. So feel free to go check me out on Twitter also. It's free. I'll follow every coach back that follows me. And I just kind of share whenever I put new content out or new videos out here on YouTube. That way everybody can stay up to date with what's going on. And that's going to do it for this episode of the 8-Man Breakdowns podcast. If you ever have a question for me, feel free to comment down below on this video or visit my bio to shoot me an email. If you've learned anything or enjoy any of these videos, please click subscribe and check out some of my other videos right here. And as always, guys, thanks for tuning in.